Sometimes I finish a game and immediately know why it resonated with me. Great story, great combat, great soundtrack, it's pretty easy, straightforward. But The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales wasn't exactly like that. After spending some considerable time with the game, I kept trying to explain why I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every answer felt right until it kind of didn't. There was something off about where I was landing with it and it just wasn't hitting. So instead of giving you kind of a straightforward impressions of what I thought about this game, I thought you could join me as I take you through some of the thought processes I had going through this experience, because I think where I ended up says something much bigger about how games earn our attention. All right, this was the obvious answer. There's the Zelda comparisons. The second you load into the game, you are rocking a sword and boomerang, hacking in half circles and cutting grass for jewel-like currency. I mean, where it's easy to draw that comparison, right? Of like the Link's Awakening kind of inspiration and some of that familiar language that you get, right? The familiar structure. You're in this kingdom. There's a world. Time travel's somewhat involved. It's drawing on these familiar notes and themes that you're from, like many people know that might be drawn to this kind of game. It's harkening back to a time, right? And while I enjoy nostalgia and it can interest me in games, it doesn't usually keep me thinking about it the way Elliot did. Things like familiarity with whether it's the world, the aesthetic of the genre, it can all be nice but by themselves, they're a little fleeting. They come and go. If a game has its hooks in me, though, it's got to be something more than that. And it's something that I'm feeling moment to moment and I'm engaging with. Let's rewind a sec. A few months ago, I had a chance to visit Square Enix LA's office for a preview of this game. And they let us spend a good amount of time with it, get some hands-on with it. A few hours into the game where you kind of had a bunch of the gear unlocked already to dabble with a lot of different variety of weapons and gear and everything. There's 7 weapons and a shield. You have 2 weapon slots, and you can just go. You're exploring the world. You're exploring the dungeon. This is where I started to see that moment to moment really hit for me. Playing with the 2 weapon slots and the various different weapon types, there was just so many combinations I could dabble with or mess with. I was really like drawn to the spear and scythe, and just messing with that. There's a big hammer. There's all these different things you could just mix and match with. Each by themselves has a satisfying feel to them, but then pairing it with something else that you didn't think you would like, you didn't realize could work as well as it does for boss encounters or good for just general mobs of enemies and stuff. And if that wasn't enough, then you look at the kind of the quote-unquote skill tree or the RPG side of things, which it's less of stat points and more of weapon abilities themselves. You get these gems that unlock the weapons they calls the Magicite, which functionally offers a variety of buffs and abilities for each type of weapon. So adding that layer onto it, you can then kind of play around with experimenting even further, not just which weapon do you jive with and which pair of weapons you jive with, but then this weapon with these abilities or these buffs can pair well or interestingly with a different set of weapons and buffs. When I was rocking the spear with a high crit chance, I was jabbing them and getting like them to stay at bay. And I oddly enough realized like, oh, that's fun, and mixed it with the bow, but I made the bow much more of like building into its charge ability, and then use Magicite to shorten that charge time so I could really take advantage of these like multi-arrow firing things that I got to do. So spear to keep them at bay or scythe, and then using these charge shots to just make them just go deleted to 0. And that was something I didn't quite think I'd jive with, but I was like, oh, okay, shit. Like, it's letting me do all this kinds of experimenting. And, you can do that with each of the other 5 other weapons that you got in the game. And so that's where, like, I was never, like, sitting with just one build. I was always just mixing, like, okay, well, I want to try this one. Ooh, I want to try that one. I want to keep the spear, but let's rotate the second slot. Ooh, I just unlocked a bunch of new Magicite. I want to go back and redabble with this and that, and just play around with the skill tree, but also the weapon tree. And it wasn't really ever about like what is the optimal build. It was always about like I just want to see what feels good, what makes the encounters feel fun, what just to see what I could do half the time. And it had a lot of, again, what I did in the preview and what I resonated with here echoes the same. This combat system is so satisfying. But as satisfying as it can be, it still wasn't quite scratching the full itch of like why it stayed with me so long. So many games I play and have just like come and gone have great combat, but it's not the full picture. So then we look at Adventures of Elliot, right? This is an IP we've never seen before, and it's a bit refreshing to see, right? As familiar as it is, there is something new here that Square Enix and Team Asano is doing. Square Enix partnered with Team Asano, with the game producer and game director, having each worked on some of their most unique projects with like Bravely Default 2, Octopath Traveler, Live Alive, the reimagining of that, and also just this bringing of the 2D HT kind of artwork that we know and love now. Not every game I think needs to be Final Fantasy. When you think Square Enix, you think Final Fantasy. Don't get me wrong, I am a late bloomer in the Final Fantasy world. I love what I'm seeing, and I love what I'm playing. The Summer Game Fest, FF7 Revelations announcement, Resonance being announced. I'm jazzed. Like, don't get me wrong. But to see other offerings, to see Square Enix and Team Asano bring in what the Octopath games have done, what Triangle Strategy has done with this kind of HD 2D aesthetic, front and center, trying other genres with that look and tone brings another palette to it, right? Of like, you got turn-based RPGs, you got tactical games, but now we're in a just full live action adventure. And I think there's an excitement for me personally that comes from building a new foundation that isn't just like an existing series or franchise. It feels like you can jump in on the ground floor with everyone else, and then you're all kind of like, hey, what is this? I don't know. Let's figure out who's Elliot. What's this adventure he's on? I shared a similar thought with my recent Pragmata video that I thought Capcom's doing something really cool with a new IP that hopefully is the beginning of something they could build off of. And I feel similarly here with Elliot. I'd love to see them do more adventures, maybe not just with Elliot, but with other characters. Let's make it into a series in and of itself, much like their storied Final Fantasy franchise, or much like the now Octopath series that they've done 3 games in, and a mobile game. I forgot about the mobile game. I say all this like it's the grand finale, but I digress. As much as I'm really stoked about the new IP, and so it's something new and different with the characters in the world, I stumbled honestly from there into what is my like real realization. And I realized I wasn't excited just because it's new. I was excited because of what it was inviting me to do. This is kind of where my epiphany occurred, when I was going through my notes, kind of just jotting them, like, what is leaving me? What is this game leaving me with? What am I feeling, and where am I at? And as I was listing everything I've kind of gone through in my navigation of like the familiarity, the combat, the experimentation, the new IP, each of these really felt like part of a larger expression of this like bigger game design and philosophy that I really kind of had this moment of like, oh, it hit me. And the game trusts curiosity. It's not so much about like how quickly can you become powerful. It's about what happens if you try this. You're doing that. The weapons, the magicite, the weapons, the skills, the exploration through time travel in the dungeons, just tinkering, like reigniting that feeling of playing a game towards discovery and curiosity, as opposed to kind of going for optimal plays, efficient pathing. That's where I started to be like, I wonder if this is kind of a larger thought in a larger conversation I was thinking of because of Elliot, that it just spawned on me of like, am I conditioned to, or are we as gamers conditioned to optimize our games, and we forgot like there's a joy in the simplicity of kind of just that curiosity, of just that tinkering. I'm guilty of this to the nth degree. Like when I'm playing Diablo, I'm pulling up sheets all over the place of like chasing build guides, maximum DPS, looking for the meta. I'm looking at fighting games and like, what's the tier list? What are we operating for? If I'm not rocking the best stuff, what's the most efficient pathing for specific activities? Adventures of Elliot, I think, really reminded me of that feeling of just tinkering and finding fun in the curiosity, in the time travel story that is this kingdom. So when I started making my notes for this video, I thought I was going to tell you about like this promising Zelda kind of action adventure game, yada yada yada. But really, it turned into what I find myself resonating with games the most is like, how do I explain my feeling of what it's resonating with me? And the answer really came with, it is the nostalgia, it is the combat, it is the newness. They're all incomplete on their own, but together they all point to that larger conclusion that it reminded me to be a curious gamer. And maybe that's why it stayed with me so long after I put the controller down and where I'm at now. So hopefully that checks with you, and I wonder if you've went through a similar journey, or if you're curious about this game as much as I am, or if you've had games where it begs that question for you too, of being a curious gamer. I'd love to know. Let me know what you think, and thank you for sticking around. Until next time, we'll catch you in the next save point.